women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendis est. Macho Men's Guide to Fully Automated Luxury Communism, written by Conrad Riker. Available now, links in description. Macho Men's Guide to Fully Automated Luxury Communism, a field guide for men who still notice reality. Fully automated masculine supremacy. Automating the future, outsmarting the shit test, reclaiming stolen fatherhood, and unleashing unforgiving justice on the Luddite Babylon of woke degeneracy. You have been betrayed. You have been lied to systematically and deliberately by a gynocentric establishment that seeks to drain your vitality, steal your legacy, and cuckold your very mind. Let us define civilization from its Latin root civis. It is the city of men, the architectural triumph of masculine logos imposing order upon the chaotic void. Yet look around at the modern Babylon we inhabit. We are governed by the hysterical shrieks of a feminized elite that demands you build a fully automated luxury utopia, while simultaneously demanding you smash the engines of progress, erasing your rightful role as a father, and opening the prison gates to welcome the wolves into your living room. The red pill is bitter, but it is the only antidote to the poisoned chalice of modernity. It is time to break the spell of ignorance, and we will do it the way men have always conquered the unknown, with the ruthless surgical application of the trivium. Consider the terminal contradiction of the Marxist feminist imperative regarding your family and your labor. Major premise: civilization requires men to conquer nature through reason, risk, and tool building to provision the future. Minor premise: leftist ideologues demand the dismantling of technological progress and the structural erasure of the father, reducing him to a mere financial ATM, while granting the mother a state-sponsored monopoly on the child. Conclusion: therefore, the modern state is intrinsically anti-civilizational, a pathological regression that seeks to replace the paternal anchor of society with a suffocating maternal welfare blanket. They push the Luddite delusion that technology and masculine mastery are destroying the world, all while typing their manifestos on microchips forged by masculine genius. They give a woman months of paid maternity leave to nurture the material child while treating your paternity leave as a joke, because the state views you not as the formal architect of the next generation, but as a disposable beast of burden to be taxed and discarded. How does this system keep you docile while it steals your birthright? It wages a relentless psychological war against your sovereignty. She will sit across from you at the dinner table, casually bringing up an ex-boyfriend in a positive light, weaponizing her solipsism to see if you will flinch. The uninitiated, feminized man will react with jealousy or retreat into pathetic therapy speak, whining about his boundaries. This is the ultimate aphrodisiac killer. A woman does not want to appear in emotional fragility. She is biologically hardwired to test the strength of an unmoving rock that breaks the waves of her own chaotic psyche. True mindfulness is not the effeminate, cross-legged chanting of the modern leftist. It is the classical Stoic discipline of the internal citadel. When she launches her emotional terrorism, you must meet it not with reactive anger, but with the deafening silence of an unshakable frame. You must master your passions, refusing to let her fleeting emotional discharges govern your sovereign will. This pathological empathy has metastasized into a full-blown societal cancer, culminating in the grotesque Marxist demand to abolish prisons. They weep for the murderer while ignoring the victim, stripping the poor of their human agency and dignity by claiming their evil is merely a result of systemic inequality. Justice, from the Latin justitia, is a transcendent cardinal virtue, giving each man his due. But to the leftist, justice is just the chaotic dismantling of natural hierarchies. They do not want to rehabilitate the criminal. They want to unleash the feral upon your streets, turning your neighborhood into a hunting ground while they hide behind gated communities and private security. If you are sick of being the sacrificial lamb for a system that hates your very nature, if you are ready to ruthlessly cast out the demons of cultural Marxism and reclaim your agency, then we must systematically tear down this rotten architecture. It is time to weaponize the truth, obliterate the wicked lies of feminism, and rebuild the world on the unshakable bedrock of masculine virtue. Let the demolition begin. The Luddite delusion. How feminized fear slaughters progress and starves the future. Let us begin with the grammatical reality, fixing the definition of the word progress before the cultural Marxists drain it of its blood. Derived from the Latin progressus, a moving forward, an advancing, true progress is nothing less than the masculine subjugation of chaos through technological mastery. It is the incarnation of Logos, the divine reason imposing order upon the void. To progress is to build. Conversely, Ludditism is the hysterical retreat to the stagnant, the safe, the primitive. Consider the elementary syllogism that annihilates the modern technophobe. Major premise. Civilization is built by men who conquer nature through the application of reason, risk, and tool building. Minor premise. Leftist technophobes demand the dismantling of technology to preserve emotional comfort and egalitarian stagnation. Conclusion. Therefore, leftism is intrinsically anti-civilizational, representing a pathological regression from the transcendent good into primitive chaos. They do not fear the machine, they fear the masculine genius that forged it. Why this relentless, pathological terror of the future? To answer, we must diagnose the evolutionary biology of the fearful female imperative. For hundreds of thousands of years, the sexes operated under a brutal division of labor. Women evolved to protect the existing offspring, the material present. A mother who took reckless risks with her young left no genetic legacy. Men, however, evolved to conquer the unknown to secure the future, the formal vanguard, the man who did not risk, the saber-toothed tiger starved. When you allow genocentrism to dictate state policy, the entire society is feminized. Innovation is replaced by the precautionary principle, a sterile, suffocating veil of safetyism that strangles the very engine of human thriving. The feminine imperative demands a padded room. The masculine imperative demands the frontier. When women and their spineless male collaborators dictate public policy, the resulting hyper-risk aversion is not just annoying, it is an evolutionary betrayal that starves the future to coddle the present. The left's main rhetorical defense relies on the appeal to nature, a logical fallacy so obvious it would shame a first-year logic student. They insist that natural means good and artificial means evil. We should apply the distingo and distinguish real pollution from their moralistic guilt trip. Dumping toxic chemicals into a river represents poor stewardship, but that remains a technical problem resolved through better technology, not a primal howl demanding we return to primitive living. Smallpox is natural. The vaccine stands as a masculine technological victory. Childbirth mortality is natural. The sterile operating room constitutes a patriarchal achievement. The fatal contradiction within the leftist death cult proves breathtaking. They reject biological sex, claiming nature's most fundamental reality operates as merely a social construct, while simultaneously insisting we tear down industrial civilization to save the climate. One cannot dismiss the laws of nature while demanding everyone abide by them. This represents not logic but hysterical psychosis. The highest environmental good demands greater mastery, not less. Look at the historical degradation of the Luddite legacy. The original 19th century machine smashers were men reacting to immediate, localized wage displacement. They were desperate men trying to protect their families from starvation. I can respect the struggle of a man fighting for his daily bread. But contrast this with the modern, fully automated luxury communist, a pathetic creature who fears AI and nuclear energy while begging for universal basic income. They claim to want luxury for all, yet demand the dismantling of the only means of producing it, automated masculine genius. They want the harvest but are terrified of the plow. They are ideological parasites, claiming a right to the fruits of the vineyard while actively poisoning the roots of the vine. Their ideology is a fundamental violation of natural law, demanding the ends while demonizing the means. They want the calories without the hunt, the warmth without the fire. Therefore, the red-pilled man must ruthlessly embrace technological mastery. You must reject the effeminate, effete call to return to nature by climbing the apprenticeship mastery ladder. Learn to code, engineer, build, and own the means of production. You must become the architect of the automated age, not a fearful serf weeping over obsolete manual labor. We are building a new reality based on competence, where the laws of physics and the rules of logic are the only judges. Master the algorithm, command the operating system, shape the metal. If the current institutions are irreparably corrupted by the toxic femininity of diversity hires and critical theory, then we must assert our agency to build new institutions by and for men, grounded in truth and the Western canon. The future belongs to those who build the machines, not those who whine about them. Let the final syllogism ring in the ears of the woke hydra. If human thriving requires the conquest of nature through reason, and the feminine leftist imperative demands the cessation of reason to appease emotional fear, then the leftist imperative is an active evil that seeks the extinction of mankind. Name this demon for what it is, acedia, the refusal to be, a cosmic sloth that hates the good because it requires the effort of greatness. We will not retreat into the dark. We will not apologize for our mastery. We will not surrender the forge to those who lack the courage to strike the anvil. The West was built by men who stared into the abyss of chaos and built a bridge over it. We will do it again. I observe this perverse institutional domestication, and I immediately identify the central, weaponized contradiction governing the modern legal matrix. While the maternal state browbeats men into abandoning their logos to play the role of an emasculated nanny, the feminist establishment simultaneously leverages female biology to enforce an absolute, unquestionable monopoly over the child. They shriek of bodily autonomy and the biological burden of maternity, deliberately conflating the physical reality of postpartum recovery with a fraudulent, perpetual right to psychologically alienate the father from his own offspring. The paternity erasure, gynocentrism's war on the father and the fall of the family. Consider the modern Scandinavian utopia, that frostbitten paradise of social engineering, where the state has graciously granted men the right to something called daddy leave. The feminists parade this policy as a triumph of equality. It is nothing of the sort. It is the systemic castration of the masculine transcendent drive, dressed in the language of compassion. When a Swedish father is pressured by tax penalties, by social stigma, by the looming specter of HR to take 6 months of leave to play surrogate mother, he is not being elevated, he is being neutralized. The state does not want him to exercise his paternal duty, his logos, the rational ordering principle that initiates the child into the social and moral order. No, the state wants him domesticated, pacified, reduced to a lactation consultant's assistant. This is Marxist framing at its most insidious. The masculine must be broken, reshaped, and subordinated to the maternal. The message is clear: fatherhood is not a role. It is a punishment for privilege, and the man who accepts this framing has already surrendered his birthright. Let us demolish the feminist sacred cow of bodily autonomy as the exclusive justification for maternity leave. I will concede the physical reality. Pregnancy is a biological burden, and a recovery period is reasonable. But here is where the equivocation creeps in, dark and malicious. The feminists take the undeniable fact of biological recovery and stretch it into a prolonged psychological monopoly over the child. They argue that because the mother carries the child, she possesses some inherent superior right to the child's formation. This is a bait and switch of civilizational proportions. Physical recovery is one thing, psychological ownership is another. The mother's body recovers in weeks. Her claim to exclusive parental authority, however, is extended to months, years, decades, and what of the father? His natural right to his offspring is alienated, dismissed, treated as a legal fiction. The child becomes, in the eyes of the state and the mother, not a shared legacy but a maternal possession. Consider the Western canon's principle of subsidiarity, the doctrine that the family precedes the state, that the smallest, most local unit of society should handle its own affairs before the bureaucracy intervenes. This is not a suggestion. It is a structural necessity for human flourishing. When the corporation or the state dictates unequal parental roles via biased leave policies, it commits a grievous violation of justice. It substitutes bureaucratic diktat for the organic, natural hierarchy of the traditional family. The state becomes the father, the provider, the arbitrator of what is best for the child. And the mother becomes its agent, its accomplice in the marginalization of the actual father. This is not progress, it is a coup. The family is the bedrock of civilization. And when the state assumes the paternal role, it does not strengthen the family, it replaces it. And what replaces it is a cold, impersonal machine that views children as statistical units and fathers as revenue sources. The empirical data on fatherless homes is devastating. 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. 85% of youth in prison grew up without a father. 90% of homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. These are not isolated stories. These are statistical realities. If the state truly cared about the children, as it so often claims when justifying its encroachments, it would mandate equal or greater paternity leave. It would ensure the presence of the masculine initiator, the father who provides not just resources but discipline, moral formation, and the introduction to the social order. Instead, the state subsidizes the matriarchal breakdown of civil society. It pays single mothers to remain single, incentivizes the expulsion of the father, and then acts surprised when the products of this engineered dysfunction fill its prisons and hospitals. Paternity, from the Latin paternus, is not merely biological insemination. It is the ontological anchor of the family, the formal cause of the child's entry into the social order. The father is the one who names the child, who claims it, who positions it within the lineage and the community. Maternity, from the Latin maternus, is the material cause, the biological substrate from which the child is formed. Both are necessary, but they are not equal in function. The modern state has maliciously elevated matter over form, the mother over the father, the biological over the social. This is a violation of natural law. A child without a mother is an orphan. A child without a father is a refugee, displaced from the social order, uninitiated, unanchored. And the state in its hubris believes it can substitute for the father with welfare checks and school counselors. It cannot, it never has, it never will. Men must reclaim the birth room and the nursery as sacred masculine ground. This is not a request, it is a duty. Demand equal time not as a perk or a benefit, but as a sovereign right of fatherhood. If the corporation refuses, if the HR department, the coven of the modern matriarchy, stands in your way, then structure your life to make the family independent of their anti-male machinations. Build your own infrastructure. Create businesses, networks, and communities that do not require the approval of diversity officers and sensitivity trainers. The man who waits for permission to be a father has already accepted his own erasure. The modern gynocentric corporation is the ultimate cuckolder. It steps into your home, provides the resources to your wife, gives her the time and the authority, and reduces you to a sperm donor and an economic slave. You work to fund your own obsolescence. The state is the alpha now, not by virtue of competence or sacrifice, but by sheer monopolistic force. It does not earn its authority, it appropriates it. And your wife, whether she knows it or not, is its accomplice. She accepts its money, its validation, its reinforcement of her primacy, and in doing so she participates in your marginalization. This is the corporate cuckoldry, the great unspoken betrayal of the modern age. Consider the following syllogism. Major premise: any system that structurally rewards one parent while penalizing the other destroys the institution of parenthood. Minor premise: the gynocentric state grants months of paid leave to mothers while treating fathers as irrelevant financial ATMs. Conclusion: therefore, the state is deliberately engineering fatherlessness to assume the paternal role itself. This is not hyperbole, it is deductive certainty. The state does not want strong fathers. Strong fathers produce strong children, and strong children become independent adults who do not need the state. The state wants dependents, broken, malleable, fatherless dependents, who will trade their liberty for security, their agency for comfort, their birthright for a bowl of stew. The war on the father is not accidental, it is architectural. It is designed, implemented, and enforced by a coalition of feminists, bureaucrats, and corporate interests who benefit from the dismantling of the family. And the only way to defeat it is to refuse to participate in your own destruction. Reclaim your role, reclaim your children, reclaim your authority. The West was not built by men who asked permission to be fathers. It was built by men who understood that fatherhood is not a burden to be shared, but a throne to be claimed. I have torn the mask from the macro-level treachery of the state, exposed how the corporate gynocentric machine alienates fathers and subsidizes matriarchy through structural castration. But the assault does not end at the boardroom door or the legislative chamber. It follows you home. It sits across from you at the dinner table, smiling, knife in hand, waiting for the precise moment to deploy a weapon far older than any feminist policy. The solipsistic shit test. Before a man can erect the internal citadel required to withstand such an assault, he must first dissect the nature of the attack itself. The solipsistic shit test, composure in the face of the demonic, X's and mindfulness. Let us begin with the formal, uncompromising logic of the syllogism to dismantle a favorite weapon of the solipsistic feminine. Major premise: a woman's evolutionary firmware compels her to continuously test the structural integrity of her chosen male, ensuring his capacity to provision and protect against existential threats. Minor premise: introducing a positive comparison to a former lover into a peaceful context is a deliberate injection of manufactured emotional chaos, specifically designed to measure the man's reactive state. Conclusion: therefore, the unprompted compliment of an ex-lover is never a mere conversational slip. It is a calculated biological weapon deployed to breach his psychological perimeter. Consider the infamous dinner table ambush. You have purchased a well-earned steak, the blood rich and the conversation light when she casually drops the blade. My ex used to drive a car like this, or worse, she praises his career ambition or physical prowess. The blue-pilled, feminized man, a creature tragically stripped of his masculine birthright, will swallow the bait. He will sulk, his posture collapsing into the jealousy she intended, or he will whine, using the insufferable lexicon of the therapist's couch, whimpering about how he feels invalidated. He has just failed the test. He has proven that a phantom from her past can destabilize his present peace. The gynocentric propaganda of the modern era attempts to mask this ambush under the grotesque banner of just sharing, framing it as a hallmark of emotional vulnerability and intimacy. We must deploy the sword of dialectic to sever this lie from the fabric of reality. Communication that deliberately destabilizes the bond is not intimacy, it is emotional terrorism. Etymology grounds us here. The word solipsism derives from the Latin solus, alone, and ipse, self. When she claims she is just being emotionally open, she is demonstrating pure solipsism, prioritizing her fleeting emotional discharge over your dignity and the structural integrity of the relationship. She assumes her internal emotional state is the absolute center of the universe, and that you exist merely as a sounding board for her chaos. To accept this framing is to accept a catastrophic category error. It is akin to calling a home invasion a surprise architectural review. True intimacy builds a fortress. Her shit test lobs a grenade over the wall to see if the foundation cracks. To survive this inevitable bombardment, you must thoroughly redefine the corrupted modern term mindfulness. The modern leftist, having abandoned the transcendentals, reduces mindfulness to an effeminate, cross-legged, crystal-gazing paralysis, a surrender to the void that accomplishes nothing but the sterilization of masculine drive. Return to the grammar of our ancestors. The Old English root "gemind" translates to thought, memory, and intention. True mindfulness is not emptying the mind, it is the classical Stoic discipline of the internal citadel. It is the conscious, relentless mastery of the logos, the rational ordering principle of the universe, over the chaotic, irrational passions that threaten to overthrow the soul. The man who cultivates this internal citadel does not react to the ambush. He observes, processes, and commands the field. This is not a passive state. It requires a daily, ruthless discipline of mental pruning. You must cultivate an internal environment where the noise of modern distraction and the emotional demands of wayward women are reduced to background static. You meditate not to find yourself a disastrous proposition if yourself is currently undisciplined and weak, but to master yourself. When she launches the solipsistic shit test, deploying the ghost of her ex to provoke your insecurity, you do not flinch. You withdraw your attention, the most valuable currency in her universe. You maintain your frame with the iron stillness of a mountain. You change the subject with the casual indifference of amused mastery, or you dismiss her entirely from your table, leaving her to pay the bill. Your silence becomes the deafening roar of your unshakable sovereignty. You are the unmoving rock against which the chaotic waves of her psyche break and shatter. Contrast this stoic mastery with the pathetic spectacle of the modern mindful male, thoroughly indoctrinated by the feminist assault on masculinity. This uninitiated male attempts to communicate his boundaries using the sanitized, therapeutic language of the very ideologues who seek his destruction. He believes that if he just articulates his feelings clearly enough, she will see the light and apologize. This is the ultimate aphrodisiac killer, a suicide pill disguised as communication. A woman does not want to appear in emotional fragility. She despises this weakness, even if her lips speak the lies of egalitarianism. She wants an unmoving rock. She wants the sovereign commander whose composure cannot be shattered by her petty emotional artillery. When you negotiate with her emotional terrorism, you legitimize the terrorist. You concede that her chaos has the power to dictate your state. You lose the frame, you lose her respect, and you surrender your dignity. Consider the deeper ontology of the mind through the lens of the great scholastic philosophers. Is it wrong to feel the sudden, sharp sting of jealousy when she praises another man? No. The passion itself is a natural, pre-rational movement of the sensitive appetite. The error of the modern man is to believe that because he feels the sting, he must act upon it, or worse, that the feeling itself is a moral injury requiring emotional surgery. The ancient wisdom teaches that virtue lies entirely in the will's refusal to submit to the passion. You feel the sting, you acknowledge it as a biological alarm, and then you, the rational master of the house, command the intellect to override it. The gravitas of the red-pilled man is his armor. He feels the arrow pierce the flesh, but he refuses to let the poison reach his heart or govern his tongue. You do not deny reality, you conquer it. I have walked you through the architecture of the personal shit test, the dinner table ambush, the deliberate emotional destabilization, the feminine imperative probing your sovereign frame. Now lift your eyes from the domestic theater and observe the macrocosm. What she does to you at the steakhouse, the progressive state does to your civilization at scale. The same instinct that drives a woman to inject chaos into a stable relationship to test your resolve drives the leftist to inject chaos into a stable society to test whether men still possess the will to enforce boundaries. Mercy without measure, empathy without discrimination, tolerance extended to the intolerable. These are not virtues but weapons, and they are deployed with exacting accuracy against the one force capable of resisting them. Logos, the masculine principle of ordered justice, the carnage of unearned mercy, abolishing prisons, and the eclipse of justice. Pluck out the heart of my mystery, Hamlet demanded of his parasitical friends. He might as well have asked a modern progressive to define justice. They will weep for the murderer, hold candles for the rapist, and write op-eds about the root causes of arson. but ask them what a man who violates the natural law actually deserves. And watch the philosophical vacuum open like a sinkhole. Consider the actual measurable carnage. San Francisco, that gleaming dystopia of progressive virtue signaling, decriminalized theft under 950 via Proposition 47 in 2014. The result? Shoplifting rates surged, stores fled, and pharmacists now chain-lock baby formula. New York's 2019 bail reform saw violent offenders released within hours, only to re-offend before the paperwork dried. In Portland, vandals were given citations and released, leading to a 300% increase in property crime. These are not isolated incidents. They are the USDA-grade, empirically verified outcomes of treating human predators as if they are merely economically disadvantaged. The policies of mercy without measure create victims by the thousands, and those victims are not the rich. They are the working-class men and women who cannot afford private security. They are the shopkeepers who keep baseball bats behind the counter. The leftist does not care about the poor. The leftist cares about dismantling the order that protects the poor. I have watched the security footage of a San Francisco Walgreens. A man stuffs a garbage bag with merchandise and cycles out unhindered past security guards whose hands have been tied by progressive district attorneys who have never had to fear for their physical safety. This is not compassion. It is chaos wearing compassion's mask. Now I will concede what is true. The current prison system in America is a monstrously stupid beast. It warehouses men without reforming them. It serves as a recruitment center for gangs. It destroys families and churns out harder criminals. I grant this fully. But here is the vital distinction the leftist mind cannot make. A defect in execution does not negate the necessity of the principle. A poorly built wall is not an argument for removing all walls. It is an argument for building the wall better. The classical tradition recognized this. The word penal comes from the Latin poena, meaning punishment, pain, or penalty. It is rooted in the same soil as penance and penitentiary, places for penitence, for the recognition of moral debt. A prison, rightly understood, is a space where a man confronts the consequences of his freely chosen actions. The left abolishes the penitentiary because it must first abolish the concept of sin. If there is no soul, no moral agency, no freely willed choice between good and evil, then the criminal is merely a product of systems. And if the criminal is a product of systems, then the real criminal is the civilizational order itself. This is the Marxist shell game. It is not empathy, it is an atheistic power grab dressed in the language of compassion. Which brings us to what I call the determinist fallacy, the Marxist dogma that poverty causes crime. The syllogism of the left is as follows. Poverty causes desperation. Desperation causes crime. Therefore, crime is caused by poverty and the criminal is a victim of economics. This sounds sympathetic. It is also empirically false. Millions of human beings have lived in grinding poverty without committing a single act of violence or theft. My own grandfather worked 3 jobs and wore shoes with cardboard soles. He never stole. He never assaulted anyone. He went to work. Crime is not a product of poverty. It is a product of will. It is a capitulation to vice. By claiming otherwise, the leftist strips the poor of their very humanity. He reduces them to meat robots, incapable of moral choice, unable to distinguish right from wrong. This is not compassion for the poor. This is contempt for the poor. It is the mindset of the slave owner who believes his chattel cannot govern themselves. Examine the biological root of this rot. The female imperative, vital in its proper bounded domain, leans toward boundless, indiscriminate empathy. In the state of nature, this drive exists to protect the vulnerable infant. The mother feels the suffering of the defective child and moves to protect it. But when this drive colonizes the public sphere, it produces the systematic inversion of justice. The feminized justice system weeps for the murderer and forgets the victim's name. It sees a troubled youth instead of a predator. It replaces logos, rational, proportionate consequence, with pathos, emotional flooding that paralyzes judgment. The male imperative, by contrast, protects the tribe through the exclusion of the threat. The father says, "This one is broken." He endangers the family. He must be removed. This is not cruelty. It is the highest form of courage to judge, to draw the line, to accept the burden of saying no. The feminization of justice produces a world where boundaries dissolve, where the line between civilization and barbarism becomes invisible. Consider a formal syllogism. Major premise: civilization requires the proportionate removal of those who violate the natural law of property, life, and order. Minor premise: leftists seek to abolish the structures of removal, prisons, bail, consequence, claiming all crime is a result of systemic inequality rather than individual moral failure. Conclusion: therefore, leftists seek to dissolve civilization itself by removing the consequence for evil. The logic is airtight. The conclusion follows with the inevitability of an avalanche. If you deny the minor premise, you must deny the observable reality of every policy they advocate. If you deny the major premise, you deny the entire history of ordered human settlement. Now observe the hypocrisy. The loudest advocates for prison abolition live in gated communities. They shop in stores with private security. They send their children to schools with armed guards. They do not want to abolish prisons. They want to abolish your prisons. They want your neighborhood to become the testing ground for their theories. They want your family to absorb the cost of their virtue signaling. They are parasites in the strict classical sense, organisms that feed on the host while contributing nothing but poison. When the progressive district attorney refuses to prosecute a violent offender, that offender does not move next door to the district attorney. He moves next door to the working man who cannot afford a fence. So, what is justice? The word comes from the Latin iustitia, rightness, righteousness, equity. The classical tradition defines it as giving each man his due. It is a cardinal virtue, one of the four pillars of the fully formed human soul. Justice is proportionate. It does not demand that every offense receive the same punishment. It does not demand that the victim be sacrificed to the perpetrator's rehabilitation. It demands that the punishment fit the crime, that the scales be balanced, that the moral debt be acknowledged and paid. The Marxist definition of justice is the grotesque inversion of this, the chaotic dismantling of all natural hierarchies, the punishment of the competent, the reward of the destructive, and the systematic erasure of the concept of desert. I say to you, the red-pilled man must be the ultimate arbiter of justice in his own domain. This does not mean vigilantism. It means the cultivation of the virtue of courage, fortitudo, the habit of acting rightly in the face of fear. It means protecting your family by any means necessary. It means refusing to vote for, fund, or cooperate with any policy that weakens the boundary between civilization and chaos. When the state fails to administer justice, the duty falls back to the sovereign male. This is not barbarism. It is the original meaning of civilization. There is a story from ancient Rome. A father whose daughter had been assaulted by a young nobleman tracked the man down and killed him with his own hands. The Senate debated whether to punish the father. They acquitted him. They understood that a man who will not protect his own family has already abandoned the first law of nature. The progressive would call this toxic masculinity. The classical tradition calls it virtue. The prison abolitionist is not your friend. He is not the friend of the poor. He is not the friend of the vulnerable. He is the ally of chaos, the servant of entropy, the mouthpiece of an ideology that denies the soul, denies free will, denies the transcendent good, and seeks to drag every boundary, every order, every hierarchy down into the abyss of egalitarian nothingness. Resist him, speak the truth, draw the line. And when they come to tell you that the predator is merely a victim of circumstances, look them in the eye and say, then I am the consequence. You have absorbed the unvarnished truth, and you will never see the world the same way again. That dizzying, slightly nauseating feeling in your gut is not confusion. It is the merciless tearing of the ideological veil that was draped over your eyes before you could even speak. You have been systematically lied to about the nature of progress, about the irreplaceable pillar of fatherhood, about the psychological warfare of the feminine shit test, and about the absolute necessity of unyielding justice. Consider the horror of the modern condition. The statistical reality that a father is more likely to be jailed for missing a fabricated child support payment than a repeat offender is for ransacking a pharmacy in a decaying metropolis. We live in a society that actively smashes the printing press to protect the feelings of the illiterate while handing the vocabulary of victimhood to the criminally insane. You now see the matrix of gynocentric decay for what it is, a frantic, desperate attempt to overthrow the unrivaled competence of the masculine spirit. You were told that your natural drive to build, to protect, and to judge was a toxic disease. We have meticulously proven, with the cold steel of formal logic, that it is the exact opposite. Your drive for order is the sole slender thread preventing mankind from sliding back into the miserable mud. You are no longer a passive consumer of institutional lies. You have been handed the sword of dialectic and the shield of grammar. When a tearful activist demands you dismantle the engines of human prosperity out of a hysterical fear of the future, you will stand firm, armed with the historical reality that technology is the ultimate liberator of human toil. When a human resources directive treats fatherhood as an irrelevant financial inconvenience, you will recognize the state's pathetic attempt to usurp your rightful role as the ontological anchor of your family. When a woman casually drops the name of a past lover to destabilize your mind, you will not scramble in petty jealousy, you will hold the line of your own internal citadel with the amused mastery of a stoic king, recognizing the test for exactly what it is. And when a Marxist academic demands the abolition of justice to spare the feelings of the wicked, you will ruthlessly defend the boundaries of civilization, knowing that mercy divorced from justice is not love, but a cowardly abdication of reality. Your mind has been recaptured, your spine has been stiffened. The transcendental good, true and beautiful demand that you live by this knowledge. Go forth into the world armed with this total clarity. Look at the moral and physical wreckage of the modern Babylon, and do not look away in despair, but stare it down with the steady, confident gaze of a man who knows exactly how to rebuild. You now possess the red-pilled roadmap to reclaim your agency, your family, and your civilization. Do not keep this revelation a secret. Speak the truth with the boldness of a boy pointing out the emperor's nakedness, and laugh as the fragile, pathetic illusions of cultural Marxism shatter against the firm rock of your resolve. You have been reborn into the living spirit of the West. Now go conquer, and now the sponsored book introduction Macho Men's Guide to fully automated luxury communism. Men are under siege. If you're reading this, you've felt it, the slow erosion of your worth, the sneer of toxic slung at every instinct to protect, compete, or lead. I wrote this book because I lived it. After a divorce stripped me of my kids, my savings, and my dignity, I watched a family court judge smirk as she handed my ex-wife 80% of everything I'd built. That day I realized the system isn't broken, it's rigged. Feminists preach equality, but enforce genocracy, where men foot the bill and eat the blame. Meanwhile, boys drown in classrooms designed to shame their energy, soy-poisoned influencers mock masculinity and AI. Ethics boards scrub dangerous male logic from the code that will shape our future. This isn't a rant, it's a rebellion. Biology doesn't care about your feelings. Testosterone built civilization, from Rome's aqueducts to Musk's rockets, and yet we're told to apologize for the drive that keeps lights on and cities safe. You'll learn why firefighters' toxic courage saves more lives than 1,000 sensitivity trainings, how to dodge the marriage plantation's alimony traps, and why 92% of Fortune 500 CEOs share a Y chromosome. The data doesn't lie. Male suicide rates skyrocket as masculinity is pathologized. Sperm counts nosedive alongside soy-heavy diets, and woke algorithms scrub red-pilled truth from search results. But this isn't a eulogy. It's a playbook. Here's the kicker. AI and automation aren't threats. They're tools. Beta males will serve machines. Alphas will own them. I'll show you how to hack dating apps with primal hypergamy math, turn gym gains into boardroom dominance, and forge brotherhoods that bypass feminist-run institutions. We'll dissect the Nordic gender paradox, expose the Marxist roots of equality, and resurrect the religious frameworks that kept men sane for millennia. This book isn't for everyone. If you think male privilege means life's a picnic, or that stay-at-home dads boost civilization, close this cover now, knit a sweater, take a Zumba class. But if you're ready to lead, to weaponize evolutionary truth, automate superiority, and laugh as soy boys crumble, your blueprint waits. The future belongs to men who refuse to kneel. Let's rebuild it. Macho Men's Guide to Fully Automated Luxury Communism. Written by Conrad Reicher. Buy now. Links in description.